Good evening. Welcome to the Trails Committee 11/23/2021 meeting. We're convening at 6:35 p.m. And I'll start with a roll call attendance. When I call your name, please say you're here. Tom McCoolier.
I'm here.
Satyendra Sharma.
Here.
And Kat McKee here. Great. Okay, and we have a couple of attendees. Sam Stivers is attending. If you could note that, Sati and Tim Litt.
Yep.
Okay, and Tony is here. I'm going to promote him to panelist. And Tim will call you over when we get to that item on the agenda, which will be quickly. And if you'd like to speak sooner, you're welcome to raise your hand to ask to talk. I'm going to also promote Will. Tony. Okay, great. Okay, so welcome, Will. So get started. We are going to kick off with the Troop 92 Eagle Scout project update. So we've had some movement on that. Nick, let me just think. We met last time on the 9th. And so the next step was Nick coordinated with Glenn O'Done with the survey mapping company, and Glenn works with troops. He's had some scouts himself. So we met last Saturday morning to start the surveying process. So that's actually a pretty involved process. So he took the survey, the assessor's map, and tried to find the markers, from 1900, and started the survey. So we got through some of it. We have to do another site visit this Friday at 9. If anyone's interested in joining us, you're welcome to. And a few of the scouts and their mentors and leaders will be there with some tools to help clear some of the trail. When they're doing the surveying, they need a line of sight. So sometimes we have to take a branch down, or some of the brush is actually neck high now and it's thorny. So some of that has to come down as well. And so there's going to be a little bit more of that to finish the survey up on Friday. So that's good news. And the next step, I had talked about incorporating Bay Circuit Trail Appalachian Mountain Club workshop. I've reached out to them since the surveying had started, and they have a new coordinator coming on board on the 6th. And so they don't really think it's realistic given their timeline of the year. They usually wind down their projects. It's not realistic to do a workshop in December. So they have offered a date in early January or so. If we coordinate something, that would be a better time. I will reach out to Nick and let him know that, but I'm fairly certain he and his group want to get moving in December. So that timeline's not going to work out so well. So that's just where we're at with those things. And once we will get a survey document from Glenn O'Done, and we will include that with the 8M permit when we reach out to MWA. And I did let MWA know that we're going to be out there this week. So that project's moving along. I think we're going to have some work parties coming up. So they will most likely be on the weekends because that's when the kids are out of school. So if anyone, I'll extend the invitation now and do it via email when we have some dates, more dates. If anyone can assist with some of the work, that would be great. I know it's a busy time, but before the snow falls, that would be, it is realistic that we can get this built out.
It is this Friday.
We are meeting this Friday at 9. So the
9.
surveying is going to start at 9. And he said, if for those that are coming for the work party, you might want to show up at 10. That gives him a head start to do some more of the surveying that needs to happen before any of the trail clearing. We need to map out the trail. So I don't know if anyone's available to do that with me. We need to see what the boundaries are first and then flag it. So it could happen at the same time on Friday if anyone's around to participate. Otherwise, I'm going to do a best guess so that we can get working. And we have, you know, basically the way the trail maps is it's a 50-foot wide path. So there's not a lot of creativity that's going to come. It's going to be in the middle of that 50 foot. So the creativity will be where the path widens out a little bit. You know, we'll have to do some switchbacks to make it not straight up a hill. But we can, you know, I'll do the best I can if you're not there. Okay. Yeah, I think that's about what we have for summary there. Any questions or thoughts? Okay. Okay, so I circulated the minutes. Thank you, Sati, for preparing those. Do you want me to screen share, or have you had an opportunity, Sati and Tom, to review?
I reviewed them.
Okay. Yeah. And obviously you drafted them. So, okay, so does someone want to make a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of October 5th, 2021.
Okay.
I second it.
Thank you. And let's do a roll call vote. Tom McCoolier,
Yes.
Satyanda Sharma,
Yes.
and Kat McKee. Yes. Great. So that was for the 10:05 minutes. The 11:09 minutes are not ready. We'll vote on those next meeting, which is next Monday, 11/29 at 6:30.
Yep.
So thank you, and Sati, we'll circulate those in advance. Okay. Next topic, very exciting to share that the Board of Selectmen voted to move forward with the associate members. Yay. Little
welcome aboard.
Applause. So the next step in the process is for Tony and Will to submit their citizen activity form, which they're both familiar with that process. And I, as the chair, will send out a memo recommending their appointment. And we hopefully will get on the next, if everyone has time to submit those forms, we'll get on the next meeting, which was, remind me, is it the 7th? I think I said 12/7. So they would vote to appoint them as associate members, and they would be officially on the committee.
The form that we have to submit, where would we get a copy of that?
I sent an, you may not have checked it yet. I sent an email this earlier today. I hope it was right, Will Warren. And it's an electronic form, so you just fill it out and hit submit. But if there's room to clarify that you want to be an associate member, because this is new, and their records will show that the Trails Committee doesn't have any vacancies. So you're helping to inform everyone who sees that form, right? So this is not everyone in the town hall who handles that may be aware that there's associate members now. So if on the form you can make that note, that would be helpful for clarification purposes. Okay. Okay, so next step is bylaw discussion circuit around this. And I'm going to bring Tim over. I circulated the bylaw with some comments for our discussion tonight. And we're going to discuss some of the changes that we've suggested and maybe reasons why not to accept all of them. So I'm going to promote Tim now. And I'm going to ask Tim to share his screen, and he has volunteered to take notes for us on this piece. Good evening, Tim.
Evening. I think I'm here.
Yes, you are. Thanks for joining us. Okay, so I had shared with them that you were going to, I think, share your screen. I had circulated, you saw the document I had circulated to the committee for discussion tonight, and I did not circulate your new document because I thought it might just be easiest for you to share screens and for us to go through it step by step.
Sure. This evening I finally saw Kat's email. I've been running around, and for a change, I'm the one who's a little behind. Forgive me.
Of course you're forgiven.
So I went through the markup that Kat had done and incorporated most of it into a new version There are a few things where I didn't think that was quite the right thing, and we can talk about those as we go through. So let me host disabled participant screen sharing, Kat.
Not on purpose. Hang on. More. I think, do I have to make you a co-host, maybe?
I think you do, because I have the ability to share my screen.
Thank you. Okay, you've been promoted.
There we go. Let's see. Let me try that. Okay, does that work for you folks?
Yes, I can see that.
Okay, you should have an editor that I think is currently at revision 0.12 for no particular reason. That's just the count of times I've saved it, not the number of times it's been distributed.
Kat, you distributed 0.6. That's the one I went through earlier today.
Yes, and that's right. So that's the one I sent to Tim. And then he has extracted it into another document and made additional changes. So he layered on to the original one. That
Okay. Good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Kat unfortunately didn't ask me for the source document, so she pulled in the PDF and I went back to the source document and tried to merge in all the changes so it doesn't get too technically confusing.
Oh, yeah, because 6
Because
actually
Tim-
has bicycling removed out of my version already.
Right.
Yes.
And Tim doesn't use Word, Microsoft Word.
Well,
So
I use LibreOffice, which is compatible with Word more or less.
now we know.
And it's a financial thing. Word is just too darn expensive for individuals these days. So we'll walk
All you
through. I
have
have
to do is get 5 friends and you buy the subscription. You get 5 computers and you charge them each $20 a year.
yes, but LibreOffice is free.
Hmm.
Anyway, let's work on the trails and not the technology.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm also looking. I'm not sharing, but I have a copy of Kat's thing, so I'll go back and forth and try and point out any places where I didn't go along. So Kat had removed bicycling, but we talked about that at the last meeting, and I thought the consensus was to leave it in because who knows, maybe there may be some properties where it's possible, or maybe in the future, and who wants to go back and change the bylaw.
Yeah.
Do you want to put a little where available? You want to put?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think
It's just that, as we all know, there's only really, 2 trails in town? Maybe 3 that we can actually put a bicycle on.
well, that's great. So where you can do it, you do it, and where you
Well,
can't, you just
but
explain
there-
you can't.
But there aren't any, so my concern in including it, and I like to be more inclusive than not, to your point. My concern in putting it in the bylaw is that if someone were reading this and it doesn't say we're permitted or something like that, then someone may interpret that you can bike on our trails. If DCR sees this bylaw, they're going to say, oh, you're promoting biking on the trails that you know don't allow biking. So what would be the best approach to accomplish both of our goals?
Well, I mean, I think further on, we say that you know, I forget the language, we'll find it later, that basically you're responsible for compliance with the license and other agreements. And if the other agreements say no bicycling, then there's no bicycling.
Okay.
I mean, I don't think we need to make
Yeah,
this
but
longer than it has to be.
the problem might be that Kat is saying, I mean, it should not be a problem because of a small technicality. You know, we are writing this, but you know, like DCR might say something that, you know, how you are allowing this, because it is in the first sentence we are saying.
Is it
Well, I
possible
mean-
to put biking at the end of the sentence and just do a caveat where permitted?
Possible or possibly biking, or maybe, I mean,
Yeah, where permitted. Just put bicycling - where permitted.
yeah.
Well,
It's gonna always be that because we have MDC land. So no matter what, it's gonna be where emitted.
let me think about the best way to do that. I don't want to do it on the fly, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Okay,
But
And I'm
I'll,
not sure biking is, yeah, okay, go ahead. That's fine. Let's find a way to make it work, because I do want to make sure it's clear that we're not promoting something that's not technically allowed on most of.
yeah, just as I'm thinking about it, I don't want to single out bicycling as where permitted, because everything is where permitted.
Yeah,
Right.
so I'll just voice my opinion here. I agree with you, Tim. I think, it's everything is where permitted. And so individual trails are labeled as what you can and cannot do. Whereas this is language that describes what the Trails Committee works on. So just my opinion.
Okay. Let's run with it. If we run into trouble, there's always changing the bylaw later.
Well, we'll try and avoid those, but.
Thank you.
So anyway, let's see, Kat wanted enhancing. I put that in, the commas in.
I got a question in the second paragraph. Are we on dot A now?
I am, can you see my cursor?
Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
So I said we established a
yeah,
committee,
okay.
duties and organization, and now we're in 35A, membership and whatever.
Mhm.
So I took Kat's stuff, I slightly reworded the associate members so that it's, non-voting associate members. And I think up here, I said non-voting members, paren associate members. She had left in the potential limit in terms of, up to 4 members. And I don't think a limit is in your interest. I mean, the day that you have a 5th member, you don't want to say, well, the bylaw limits you to 5. And since it's in consultation with the committee, I don't think you need to worry about the Board of Selectmen miraculously appointing, 30 members that you somehow have to deal with, just to pick an absurd example. So I'm inclined to and I recommend that you just don't mention a limit.
And that's fine. What I was doing was respecting some comments that had come out of the last select board meeting about having too many. So I thought putting a limit might benefit them and us, but because ultimately the select board has the appointing authority, they can limit it as they see fit. So I'm comfortable with that change.
Right. And I think, and it's also, they have to do it in consultation with you. So, I mean, if you're pushing back and saying, I can't deal with number 9, I don't think they're going to shove one down your throat. They've got enough trouble finding volunteers.
Yeah, and yeah, that's not more concern. I was thinking that because of their concern about some of the violation possibility, the more people you have, the more chances of issues. So it was more of a maybe a middle ground, but I'm comfortable with this because they have to review this anyway. So
Yep.
that might come back. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. And then Kat had a comment wondering whether associate members shall be residents of the town but need not be registered voters was the right standard, needs to be thought about. I, for one, have thought about it. I think it's the right standard. You want residents because you want people who have, a vested interest in what goes on. You don't want to restrict it to voting members because we may have people who, for one reason or another, can't be voting members. They might they might be on green cards, they might not be citizens, but still interested in the trails, and you'd want to make use of them.
Can you go back? Why cannot town employees be a committee member?
You don't want a town employee to be a committee member. That's a standard thing that we've put in other committees. And basically it comes down to the, if you're a town employee, you have a set of responsibilities. If you're a committee member, you direct town employees. And you sort of don't want to set up a town employee to be directing him or herself.
Is that
So that's
just
why you tend to
standard
make them ex
across-
officio members if needed.
So that's standard across all committees. You can't be an employee.
It's standard certainly in the ones that I've written.
So another comment on this section, I mean, as often happens when you start adding clauses, then you have to make sure you apply them everywhere. So I assume that voting members don't need to be registered voters also.
Thank you.
correct?
The correct question on that. Yeah, good point.
Well, actually, it says each voting member shall be a registered voter in the town.
But why is that though?
Well, again, that's something that we've done with other committees, and I guess the theory behind it has always been that you're setting policy or managing resources for the town, and sort of the minimum standard of civic engagement has been that you're a registered voter.
Okay.
I could argue getting rid of that and just be a resident of town.
Yeah, just my opinion. I think resident of town is sufficient, but I don't want to make this an issue. So
If my registration lapsed, then I cannot be then what
No,
happens?
That
But-
just happened to me. My voter registration lapsed. I didn't realize it. Would then I be kicked off the committee?
I would assume that what you do is go to the town clerk's office and fix your voter registration.
No, so but from my experience, I got invitation from town when I became a citizen. So you have to be a citizen.
Yes,
That's what
Right.
then you are able to vote also.
yes.
Correct.
So that is like kind of corollary of that you have to have a voting.
And so
registered voter.
I agree with you, Sati. So we're limiting only to Americans.
Yeah.
You have to be, and I think in this type of committee, why do we have to, if we have someone working on a green card, or, I have friends that live in town that are not citizens, they cannot be part of this committee.
Well, they
But-
can be
but-
associate members.
But then they cannot take oath. When you take oath, in whose name you take oath.
And again, you will have a
Mm.
budget. You are managing resources. I don't think it's an unreasonable restriction. And as I say, that's also been the language for other committees.
I could see, and again, not that this is an interesting topic, not that I want to take up everyone's time on this, but I could understand if it said each voting member would be a US citizen. That I might understand. But saying you have to be a registered voter, so what if Kat, you could envision all sorts of corner cases where, as Kat said, she doesn't know that she isn't a registered voter anymore, and the committee makes some votes, and now quorum calls are all screwed up because she voted, but I will stop now.
Right. I mean,
Mhm.
those
Yep.
defects can be registered, can be remedied. I mean, we had a case where someone else on this call's appointment wasn't made by an appointing committee, and they turned around and made the appointment retroactive because the person in question didn't know that his appointment had lapsed, and he just kept acting the way he was supposed to. So, I mean, there's a certain amount of reasonableness that actually does happen in this town from time to time, surprisingly.
Is there a way to find out if every bylaw that has a committee in town requires this, so that we're consistent at least? Or
We can read them, but I can tell you for a fact that this is the case for the Municipal Technology Committee, whose bylaw I wrote. It's the case for the Accessibility Committee, whose bylaw I wrote. And I
it's on
didn't,
theme.
and I didn't make those up out of whole cloth.
Okay.
And I will say that those two, passed legal review, passed town council, passed the attorney general.
Oh, I'm sure I don't think we're challenging the legality of it or anything, just the openness and inclusiveness of it. And do we want to be more inclusive if it's beneficial to do so?
Yeah, that's the same gist I'm thinking too. Why do we want to limit ourselves?
I actually have to drop off right now. I have to go to another committee meeting.
Thank you for coming, Will.
Okay.
Okay.
So are we comfortable leaving it as is, or does anyone feel strongly enough to
Be more inclusive.
be more inclusive?
I have no problems.
Well, I think, to Tim's point, if the non-associate member or the associate members don't have to be registered voters, there is a way to participate. So there's a an inclusiveness in that and a nice middle ground, perhaps.
So that's a good thing to do. We have to make sure Bella is actually a registered, not that I'm picking on young people, but she
Or do
is.
we have to make sure, or does the town clerk have to make sure?
Town clerk needs to make sure.
Yeah.
So then he would have to double check to make sure that we're all registered voters.
Well,
You
don't
have
send
time.
that email just yet.
Oh, I know we have time. We just, again, I'm fine with it. I mean, there's more important things than making sure that we're a registered voter or not.
Yeah, no, I appreciate your time and everyone's opinion. Thank you. Thank you, Tim, for letting us.
Okay, so we did talk about overlapping terms at the last meeting. If you want to talk about it some more, we can.
Well, it's
Uh,
just, it's like, do we have to? It just feels so, and I don't mean to lose words, but I'm just like, do I have to really overlapping 1 year, 2 year terms is.
Well, the
is
reason
this what
that we
NCC does?
the reason that we do it is to make sure that that institutional knowledge is carried forward.
Right. I agree with that whole thing. Is 2 years too short, or should we do a 3-year term?
You might get commitment issues. I'm not sure. I mean, we don't have it currently, but are there other committees that have different terms that aren't regulatory?
Yes. So the Municipal Technology Committee is 3-year terms, and they're overlapping. I think that's
should
also the
see where
case
I'm-
for the Accessibility Committee, but I don't. It's been 2 years since I wrote that one.
So how would that apply to existing committee members if this were in place?
Well, there are no existing committee members for the bylaw version of this committee. So what will happen is that the ad hoc committee will be dissolved, and probably in the same meeting, members will be appointed to the new committee.
Basically,
And the-
we all get fired.
Well, is this opening up for like someone to come in and appoint new committee members where we might not be reappointed to our committee?
In theory, yes, but as a practical matter, it won't happen. This happened with the Accessibility Committee just in the past month. There was a single motion. Actually, Mr. Stivers made the motion, so he can confirm this if you doubt me. He made the motion to dissolve the ADA committee and appoint the slate of Accessibility Committee members, which was semi-arbitrarily divided into 2 groups in order to get the overlapping terms. And what happens is the people with the shorter terms the first time around, if they wish to continue to serve, will get appointed for 2 years after that. So what happens typically is that, sort of half the members get appointed for a year and half the members get appointed for 2 years. And when the 1 years expire, they get appointed for 2 years, and everything after that is 2 years.
Is that a lot of work for the clerk's office to figure out?
No,
No, this is like 10 minutes.
this is routine stuff. It happens with many other committees.
Okay, well,
It's just that 2 years, I don't know, I'm more inclined to say a 3-year term. Because there's a
I
lot
like
of-
3-year terms, but when we had the conversation last time, Bella in particular was concerned about committing to 3 years out of the gate.
right.
I think, given that you will have associate members and people have an opportunity to view committee meetings before volunteering, and they could serve as an associate member. I think 3 years may be more reasonable, but it's, for me, it's just what number I put in. I don't have.
Does it mean anything easier for me or us to be on a 3-year term where we don't have to do some of the annoying the paperwork that we have to do every year and stuff, or every other year? Do we get
Well, you still have to certify that you've done the
ethics
open
training.
meeting law and that training.
Yeah.
But it is true that you have to, go through the appointment and, reappointment process less frequently.
Right, I'm indifferent. If you want 3, let's try for 3. Sati, do
I
you
mean,
have? any
I
other-
don't, I'm just putting it out there for discussion.
I mean,
I'm
people
okay
can
with
always
that.
resign, right?
Yes.
So. That's
3
good.
going
Well,
once.
Well, let's keep it at 2. Let's keep it at 2.
Okay.
But the question I now have is associate members, what's their term?
So it's down here. Does it say?
Did I miss? I don't remember.
That's
It
a
just
good
talks
question.
about voting members. Again, I'm looking at the previous 06.
It is
version.
at
You're,
will.
you're correct. We
At
did,
will.
we didn't specify that.
Paul. Now, is that better suited for a 1-year term, just in case someone just wants to get their feet wet, to Bella's point, and have an opportunity to serve? And maybe Tony, who will be serving in that, could give us his thoughts on it.
I
Yeah.
think that's a good idea to have an associate be 1 year at a time.
I agree.
Sati?
Yes, I agree.
Sweet,
Done.
thanks. Is there space between M and S on terms?
I will, no, there, it's a funny font.
Oh,
I'll fix the vertical spacing later. So thank you for that catch. Let's see, in this paragraph, Kat had suggested including information about illness or other reasons. I think that's covered by the option for them to resign, and the clause that says if they don't faithfully discharge their duties, that covers illness. And
I was trying to get rid of the word die. I just didn't want to see die in our bylaw, and so I used number of words to not use the word die. Is die something you always include in a bylaw?
yes, well, it's something I've included in all the others.
Yeah.
No longer exists on this earthy plane.
Eh,
Just unable to participate.
Yeah.
Failure
unable
to breathe.
So yeah, unable to serve on the committee due to illness or other.
Yeah. No, that's fine. I mean, that's what just doing. I see this right here is the essence of this is, to me, if in 6 months we find that a committee member is not doing it, a deadbeat, whatever, we have the ability to remove them from the committee. Is that the essence of this paragraph?
well, the select board has
Besides
the
the
ability
dying
to
part.
remove them, and what would happen is you would refer them to the select board saying, so-and-so hasn't been able to participate for 3/4 of the meetings in the past 6 months. Please hold a hearing so we can replace that person.
So it gives us a little teeth to get rid of somebody, I guess is what I'm reading.
Yes,
I like conversation over teeth, but I get it.
That's the essence of it, is if we wanted to, we do have a method to remove a member. Not that we ever want to.
But is that 6 months or like 9 meetings out of 12 or something like that? Or,
it's 3/4 of the full committee
3/4.
meetings held in any 6-month interval.
oh, okay.
So we could have 6 meetings, 3/4 is 4. If my quarters are correct. No. I'm just thinking that out loud. If it's 6 months and that we're doing meeting 1 a month, right now we're not. But on average, it's 1 a month.
Mhm.
What's 3/4? They have to attend 4 meetings. Again, we're getting picky here. I'm fine with the essence. I don't think we'll ever have to, hopefully we'll never have to execute this, but it's there.
Yeah, and again, that's the same standard I used with the Municipal Technology Committee, and the advisory committee has something similar, I believe. I'm not sure that the numbers are exactly the same.
Do they use the word die too? Death.
I can look it up, Kat.
Is it necessary? I mean, I don't know. It just
It's
feels.
consistent with what's been done elsewhere.
All right.
And my inclination on all of this was use things that have been approved elsewhere, because you can use it as precedent. You don't have to argue about it. It's sort of unfortunate that we're arguing about it here, but better here than
I don't
with the
think this
attorneys.
is arguing. We're discussing. Hey. Okay, thank you for entertaining my concern.
Let's see, I added vice chair at Kat's suggestion. She had thought about clerk. Secretary is used for most of the other committees. And again, for consistency, I'd stick with it. I mean, it's not a pejorative term. Even if in the corporate world, people have moved to administrative assistant or something. Secretary is used as on corporate boards. It's used in lots of places.
Yep, Secretary of State. also.
Secretary of State, yeah.
Let's see, what else? The committee shall promote, that's new from Kat. And
Yeah, that's
uh,
consistent with our most recent change that we made to the ad hoc committee.
yep, I think that's great. I didn't mention, but I did replace Board of Selectmen with Select Board everywhere.
Thank you.
Consistency
Keeping
with
up
the
with the
new
times,
bylaw.
keeping up with the times.
Does anyone know what the new acronym is going to be? I really appreciated BOS. Is it now SB?
No,
I
it's
don't know what it's
BS.
going to be.
It's all BS.
Frankly, I
Kat,
thought
you
it
know
should
I
have
was
been,
gonna say it. You knew I was gonna say it, Kat.
I thought it should have been Board of Select People, but you know, Mr. Healy said that the whole thing was ridiculous, but voted for it anyway. Look, it's what the town meeting voted.
I appreciate the change.
So here it is.
I get it.
Yeah, I get it.
Well, I mean, I've been writing letters to anonymous folks as gentle people since the early 70s. So, I mean, it's not that I'm against the concept. This just wouldn't have been my choice. Let's see. The last thing that differs from what Kat did is
Oh,
I
yeah.
think here she had wanted to put in and other organizations after schools,
Mhm.
but we already have worked with other public and private entities, including the town's recreation, blah,
Okay.
blah.
So you're not.
I can
that-
certainly make it including, but not limited to.
I think, well, private and public entities, I wanted just to make sure that they were inclusive of organizations like Southborough Open Land Foundation, Sudbury Valley Trustees, and they qualify as public or private. So essentially, it's
Yeah,
I
that's.
mean, I can
that's
do the
essence
legal
I
thing
agree.
here and do including, but not limited to.
I like that.
Yeah, I like that. But it's
And
open.
that's-
Great.
Including normally is read that way, but we can be explicit. I've done that before. And I think that's pretty much what's been updated.
Great. Thank you. This looks great.
One question, getting back to the 3/4 of this thing. So is it does it apply to the associate members also, or?
Oh, good question. Can we get rid of associates? I would have to, I'm gonna say, my personal opinion, they're only a 1-year term. And again, they're not a voting member. Do they have to show up all the meetings? No.
No, that's one of the benefits of and flexibility of the associate members.
Right,
Then
so-
we should have this somewhere written that,
Mhm.
Well, the way that it currently reads is that any member, and it's not qualified by voting or associate, who doesn't, discharge their duties or whatever. But for the select board is only required to attempt to appoint a replacement in the case of a voting vacancy. If you look at sort of the last sentence here, that was
Yeah.
sort of the balance I struck. So it still gives you the opportunity, if you had to remove an associate member. That's really, I think it's all mostly, belt and suspenders
Yeah, nobody
language.
wants this.
And it does cover
So-
some of the cases you ran into in the past where people stopped participating.
Well, our associate members addresses that also. Thank you. Are you comfortable with that, Tom?
I was gonna just say, remember, the associate member is a 1-year term. And this says, in this case, if they only go in 6-month time, they only have come to 3 meetings, so we can execute this clause.
Mhm.
Are they gonna see this as a stick over their head to make sure they go to these meetings? And are we getting away from the essence of the associate member? To me, they're there to help, but they don't have to have the full burden of being a member of the voting committee.
And that's something we can kind of clarify also in either on the website as to, you know, to make sure that it's clear that associate members are not held to the same, you know.
Well, if we just put the one word, any voting member who shall remove from the, if we split
Yeah,
that in that paragraph and saying, this really only applies to voting, I mean, for the committee member, we'll come with full and voting, whatever the term is. I think that
I'm
makes
not
it explicit
sure
that
you
we're
wanna do
excluding
that.
the non-voting. But I'll leave it up to discussion.
I like that language where it applies to voting members. I personally think that makes sense.
yeah,
So someone who moves to Florida remains a member until the end of their term.
They're no longer a resident.
yeah.
So
Again, we have it unlimited, so they moved to Florida. We can't discharge them for the next 6 months. Oh, wow. Hey,
Yep,
Board of
but they-
Selectmen, we want to, you know, we're open for more members.
They're no longer eligible if they move because they're no longer a resident of the
They
town.
can't get renewed, but what I think, Tim, what you're saying is we can't get them off.
you can't
the
get them
list.
off without this paragraph.
But is
Wait.
that a big enough, so if you're in, if it's say, Tony moves, say he's an associate member, non-voting member, associate member, and he moves 6 months from now.
So I
his
mean,
name
notice
will-
also that the word
Is there.
voting appears here, right?
Yeah.
We're notified that any voting member has failed to discharge his duties.
Yep,
Okay, yeah, that,
So that clause actually doesn't apply to the associate members.
okay.
So the first part does and the second sentence doesn't.
And that makes sense. Anyone who moves from town.
yeah, I think, yeah, that makes it,
I mean, I did think about this when I wrote it, but I have to admit it was now a few months ago.
Okay, I'm good with it then.
Thank you. Okay,
yeah, they can go to Florida if there's, as long as we have Zoom meetings. If we have in-person meetings, then it will be a problem.
Well, personally, I'm anxious for you to resume in-person meetings because Zoom
Yep.
meetings are not something I'm fond of, but
I'm super fond of them and I hope when we go back that we do a hybrid because we've never had such great success with quorum and being more informed about town committees and going ons. I've never been so informed, so I hope.
But I do miss going into the historical society.
Yeah, exactly.
I agree. That was
It's a cool
fun.
place to hang out.
So
All
I
right.
think, are we ready to take a vote as amended as on the bylaw to move forward and propose it to, I think the next step, Tim, is to propose it to the Board of Selectmen. Is that right?
there are two things to do. One is to forward it to the Board of Selectmen and request that it be included in the warrant for the annual town meeting. And
Would it be prudent-
I'll provide a clean copy of it. I think the only open issue is, do I need to say something about, you know, where permitted? I don't think it's necessary, but if you want me to, I'll think about it some more.
If you want me to, I'll think about it and then I'll nix it.
No, hey, it's your article. I'm just trying to be helpful here, Kat.
No, of course, and we're not trying to be troubling. We're just concerned because of our relationship with DCR. We want to make sure, and it is important for us to ensure that we're promoting correct uses. But I agree with the sense that, you know, none of this is possible unless it's a permitted use. So I'm probably gonna fold and be okay with permitted use policies and that protect. Right. Yep.
Right, and down here, I mean, you're responsible for all trail monitoring and maintenance obligations under any licensing agreement. So if the licensing agreement says no biking, then you're responsible for making sure that there is no biking.
And the paragraph above it says we're responsible for promoting recreational opportunities and educating trail users about the permitted
use.
Yeah, but one question, why it is so important to put it there?
I understand the flexibility that we may want it there. For example, if because at the DCR listening session, we did ask if they would consider allowing biking on the Bay Circuit Trail, which also is an access road, and the Peninsula Trail, which is also an access road. Both of those have vehicles driving on them. Would they consider putting biking on those two trails separately? So that may be one reason. And to Tim's point, if we were to change it later, we'd have to go to town meeting and change it in a bylaw, in a vote.
With a view to, I mean, future usage, right?
Yeah, so
Right,
this
okay.
creates a really open
Okay.
and it's
Yeah, I
more-
mean, I think we want to try to find ways of allowing bikes on trails.
oh, we love bikes on trails. It's just we've
Yeah.
been hit with so many no's across our head that we're just like, okay,
Yeah, but we can keep trying.
yeah. See, this is where new blood comes in handy. You get the motivation and the
Because you
optimism.
don't have your concussions yet.
Yeah, well, this is not a case where you want to get hit over the head because it feels so good when you stop.
Mm.
You want to just keep at it because eventually you'll wear them down.
Yeah, and we can do that sometimes too.
Again, well, the question is bicycling a passive recreational use?
No,
It's not considered a passive?
I don't think it's passive.
All right, well, that's
Okay,
an interesting, passive is an interesting word here, but I was also wondering, because like some trails in some towns allow horses.
True.
Some towns,
So is that passive? So maybe passive isn't required.
I think, well, that's a good point.
It's not clear to me what passive actually helps with in this language.
I was in the Hopkinton State Park a while back and had to step out of the way of a trio of horses coming by. So
Yeah, it might be sufficient to just say and other recreational use.
If that is the wording in other,
So
Just-
passive recreation means it's to ensure the least impact is what I'm reading on the wetland ecosystem. So you oftentimes, I think it may be related to us having most of our trails in a watershed. And you see a lot of, that's how DCR describes passive recreation, meaning not very active being bikes and other types of maybe
Yeah.
snowmobiles on some. And
I also know that
specific
the
term.
conservation restrictions, several of them specify that passive recreation use is permitted.
Yeah, because it says right here, active recreation is cycling as an example. Passive is little exertion, reading, fishing. I mean, there's many definitions. of
so
this.
you are not
It's a
interacting.
defined term in the
So,
industry.
so running is passive?
It's-
According to this one, yes.
Basically, you don't want to interact with the trail environment in a
non-motorized
way,
outdoor
yeah, in a way
recreation.
that is detrimental to the trail. That's passive, right?
Then you get another one, passive recreation refers to recreational activities that do not require prepared facilities like sports fields or pavilions.
Interesting law insider, whatever that is.
So,
.com describes biking
guess-
as passive.
I guess
And I
another
don't see the
possible-
difference between a bike and a wheelchair in terms of impact.
All right, so I think that's an excellent point. So it might be that actually the language should be here that we're just responsible for trails, and you don't have to say anything about what any of the uses of the trails are.
That's a great idea because we're getting ourselves into some tricky territory that could be then.
Yeah, and I think the wheelchair point is an excellent point.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
maybe it should just be we're responsible for trails.
Yep. So just take out all of that parenthetical.
Because I just saw this article from the EPA.gov, and passive recreational does include bicycling, fishing, horseshoe. I mean,
Yeah,
Yeah, I
horseback.
just saw that on Law Insider, but yeah, so.
Yeah, but I don't know what a resource trail is.
Well, yeah, I don't know what resource
Where
means.
does
So
this
why
word
aren't we
resource come from?
why aren't we just responsible for the Southborough trails?
The
Trails
overseers
are an important recreational asset in town and contribute to the quality of
Yeah,
life.
Southborough trails are an important that blah, blah, blah.
Can't we just see that the Trails Committee is the overseers of the Southborough Trails, which leads to important recreational assets of the town, blah, 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 blah. Are we
Yeah.
overseers?
We just take out,
Custodians?
we just take out all those specifics because there's no reason to list
That's a
them.
good idea. Good suggestion, Tony. Thank you.
Well, the reason
Thank
they're listed is that the original charge talked about resource trails, and a resource trail has no meaning to me or to the general public. So
But
this is basically a
if we
definition
did-
of of the kinds of trails that you're responsible for.
So the more, and again, so I'm just an associate member. I'm new here, guys. So right, so I don't want
Well, I'm not even that.
but-
So
but actually, I think removing resource is a really good idea. This group should just be responsible for the Southborough trails. That's it.
Custodians of Southborough Trail.
Custodian of the trails within the town of Southborough.
There you go. Something like that. And another day we can debate, well, do we have a horse trail? Do we have a wheelchair trail? Do we have a bicycle trail? I mean, we're just responsible for trails. And then that gives us flexibility.
And it is mentioned down there in the functions, whatever is permitted. So that's a redundant. So I agree. I think we should change that first paragraph.
I'm just sort of struggling with talking about trails with no definition. I mean, this may not be the right definition, but normally, when you do a document like this, you try and define your terms. And do we include snowmobile trails?
Well,
It's a walking trail,
that's
right?
more of a permitted use,
Permitted use.
right?
Yeah,
So
maybe if we could have a snowmobile trail, that might be a good thing.
And you would and you would
know,
want this committee to worry about it.
I'm
That's a
sorry.
question.
Okay, so define,
The hiking trail.
walking paths, I mean,
Yeah, I don't know if it's the Southborough trails are responsible for the off-road, I don't know, non-road. I don't know that. I understand your point, Tim, but I don't know. I don't know how you, I don't know. I'm at a loss for words, but I personally prefer not trying to list all of the potential uses.
Well, that's why
Um,
it says, and other, so that you have the opportunity to add.
Well, why do we even have any of them? Period.
so definition of a trail is a marked, paved, or beaten path, of course. Pathway through the forest, any of those things, work for our purposes here. So, because this section is the purpose. So I think if we say Southborough Trails, do we need to define it any more than what the general population knows a trail to be?
I personally don't think so, but that's just my opinion.
Tim, when you, with the Municipal Technology Committee, do they have a definition of anything that goes in their purpose?
Yes.
paragraph?
And in fact, they have an including but not limited to, list of technologies. Present, future, and I didn't include the past, so the steam engine isn't there, although if we have one in town, it would fall under their purview.
Okay, we can take, would it be helpful if we take a stab and send you a sentence or two? for this
Sure.
Section and, okay,
I mean, at the end of the day, this is your article. As I've said before, I'm doing my best to try and help to formulate something that I think will find its way through the process intact.
all right. No, I
And
appreciate it.
and
And-
typically these things, do want some kind of definition.
Okay.
But
No,
if this,
we
but
do
if this isn't
appreciate
the
it,
right
right.
one, or if it's really upsetting, help me to come up with something that's better, and I'll be happy to play scribe.
Okay. Might need to do that offline if you're comfortable with us just sending you a sentence in a few minutes after the meeting and we just think about it.
Well, that's fine. I mean, you can also make your vote be one where you delegate to say me and Kat to finalize this paragraph, so that you don't hold this for another meeting.
Yeah, that might work. How does the committee feel about that?
Yeah, fine.
So I will just read what the Northborough Trails Committee says. They say, Northborough Trails Committee works to develop and maintain a viable recreational trails system.
Oh,
Yeah, I read that too.
I like it.
I like that.
So is that enough of a definition, recreational trail system?
I think so.
Well-
It's keeping it broad. I mean, who knows what the trail is going to be like in the future? I would like to have a nice paved trail around the reservoirs, but that ain't gonna happen.
What if we just say recreational trails are an important asset
think
of the
that-
town,
I think
Yeah,
that's
that-
contribute to the
that
quality
is-
of life of its residents?
there you go.
Yeah,
Perfect.
that's good.
Done. Awesome. Okay, so you were telling us the steps. You said forward to the Board of Selectmen at request in the warrant town meeting. Right? And so after we vote, one is vote to do this, and then two is send it to the Board of Selectmen to be included in the warrant article. And then what happens? Do they have to?
So there are a bunch of things that should happen after that. One is I would encourage you, and if you want me to help, I'll try to pull together, a couple of slides to go around explaining to people what you're doing and why, so that you get support. The people who have to look at it are the Board of Selectmen, because they make a recommendation at town meeting, and we hope that they'll actually sponsor this for you. And advisory is required to look at all articles in the warrant and has the option of taking a position. So you're going to have to go in front of them and explain, what we're doing and why it's here. And some of this discussions we've had, will undoubtedly be repeated.
Of course.
What I've done in the past is also go to other boards and commissions that might have a stake in it or might be influential, and explain to them what I'm doing. So in this case, certainly you would want to go to the Recreation Commission and talk to them. You might want to talk to the Board of Health, who's interested in things. You might want to talk to the Senior Center, which sponsors walking clubs and, sort of is a user of the trails.
We're going to be in front of them next week, December 1st. Can I bring this up?
Sure.
That might be a great opportunity to say, hey, we're looking to do this. And so forgive this naive question. I think, because we talked a little bit about getting other support. So we could say in a slide that we have 5 to 10 other commissions, boards that support our move from an ad hoc to a standing committee. That's one benefit. But what am I asking them? Do you support our conversion from ad hoc to standing? Because there's a piece of me that says, why do I need to ask you?
No, I think so. The tack I've taken is I'm informing you that I'm doing something that overlaps with some of your interests, and if you have input on things that if we haven't anticipated an impact on you, or if there's something that you see that could make it better, by all means, I'm open. Tell me about it, and I'd like to have your support as it goes through the review process. I'm not asking for permission, but I would like support.
I'd like to have your support, and I'd like to be able to list you as a supporter of this change. That's the specific ask. Is I'd like to be able to list your organization as an organization or a committee, whatever, that supports.
Yeah, I mean, if asked, I'd like to be able to say that you support this. Now, what's
So-
happened to me in the past is some committees have said, gee, you know, this is great. We kind of like what you're doing, and that's the end of it. Others have said, you know, would you like us to take a formal vote of support and put it on the record? And I've always said yes.
I could be very direct and say, will you take a formal vote and put this
You
on?
could be, or you could just let them decide. And I think it really depends on the committee. So, I mean, I think it would be helpful in this case for the Recreation Commission, which clearly has overlapping interests,
No, yeah.
to vote and say, yes, I support this. It might be less urgent for the Board of Health, and the Senior Center is probably, or the Council on Aging, which runs the Senior Center, is probably somewhere in between.
And I need to clarify, I'm not meeting with the Senior Center. I'm meeting with the Trailblazers. It's a totally different group. But so, Tim, when I asked that question, do I need to send them a copy of the bylaw and have them read it? And then in order to support it?
So what I've done in the past, I've done a couple of things. I mean, I've asked for time on the agenda. I've prepared, you know, somewhere between 1 and 5 slides that go through things. And this one is not complicated enough, I think, to need, you know, 5 slides. I've prepared a frequently asked questions document, you know, that sort of says, tries to answer the questions, you know, so why are we doing this? And what are the objections, you know, we've heard, and here are our answers to those, to try and short circuit some of the things. And all of this stuff ends up, you know, at town meeting for the voters anyway. So, I mean, it's not excess work.
Okay, that's helpful. And so as far as objections, the select board, they were all for it. And I wasn't really clear necessarily on the objections from the town clerk. And I'm not sure I can articulate that clearly, and I'm not sure. Does anyone remember why it was a problem?
I think it was setting precedents for potential other
Well,
boards.
that
and
was
committees.
associate members, right? The
Yeah,
The
associate
minutes I
member.
saw from the Board of Selectmen meeting where this happened, and I haven't had a chance to view the meetings, said something about Jim was, you know, concerned about increasing the potential for open meeting law violations
Right, and that was for associate members.
for associate members.
So maybe
think
that
we-
is the objection that we should address, because this does incorporate associate members also.
Well, I think what I would say is, you know, that this is codifying the ad hoc committee as it's currently approved by the Board of Selectmen. And, you know, if someone asks about associate members, well, we can talk about it, but I mean, since you've gotten the Board of Selectmen to approve the associate members in your current charge, this is just taking that and making it permanent.
Yeah, but I think you're right at the getting the approval or thoughts around that, because that is going to be a hot topic issue if we are challenged, as we were told we would be at the town meeting, with an opposing warrant article.
I've
Well,
never
but-
heard of an opposing warrant article. I've heard people who might make motions to amend or to change, but I don't think anyone's going to put together an alternative article for this. Who said they would?
No, not an alternative. I think a article to,
Oppose the change.
yeah.
So because of that, I do understand and think that associate member should be a part of the FAQs and the reasons why we're doing it.
Mhm.
And I think
Well, I mean,
that,
who specifically said, you know, I'm going to oppose this at town meeting, and let's work on educating that person.
I think the record may indicate that, and I don't want to highlight it too much, but yeah, it was a specific conversation. So I think it's best if we look at the records and identify that without highlighting it again and causing.
Okay, well, I mean,
perhaps
all I'm
some
saying is whoever it is, you know, we should work with that person and make sure that the objection is understood and if possible, overcome.
Attempted, invitation extended, invitation rejected. So yeah, So
So-
I think that will be where our work, we need to focus on making sure that, to your point, Tim, is making sure that we're clear in our materials, that in case there are some other people who have concerns, that we address them head on.
Right, and I think the more support we have, the less likely people are to stand up and object, because, the way it works is, the person with the most votes wins.
Yeah, and I think we have a good case, given, there were 12 other municipalities in the state, at least, that are using some sort of associate members in the capacity that we're looking to do, and non-regulatory boards. So there's a good, base that we're not starting from scratch or trying to do something new, and we're definitely not trying to circumvent open meeting law.
So pull something together, and if you want me to take a pass over it and edit, I'm happy to try and do that.
Definitely.
So
yeah,
the formal, so just make
Go
sure that the formal process is clear. This goes to the Board of Selectmen with a request that it be put on the warrant. The selectmen will vote on it. The advisory committee will vote on it. You'll want to talk to both of them. That's required. Then, it does go to town meeting. You have an opportunity to amend, the thing on town meeting floor, and we can probably change it up until the warrant goes to the printer. At least for editorial kinds of stuff. Town meeting votes on it and approves it.
Yep.
And then it goes to the Attorney General's office for a pro forma review. In between, when the warrant is finalized, it will be looked at by town council, who may have some comments. I'm not an attorney. Just because I've done this before doesn't mean that I haven't screwed up somewhere, and he may have a suggestion or two.
Is there any benefit to put it before town council before we bring it to the board, or is that just a natural step that takes place outside of
The Board of
our-
Selectmen will send it there no matter what.
So there's no benefit to doing that in advance to streamline things.
It's harmless. I mean, if you have, given that we have an all-you-can-eat town council now, can certainly do it.
What is the board, does the committee have an opinion on that? I found it beneficial to have gone to the council before the Board of Selectmen meetings. I think it made that process go by. I think they appreciated hearing from him so that they felt comfortable discussing it. Does anyone have a thought on that?
I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
Like you said, with the town council as it's set up right now, there's no harm.
Yeah.
There's no harm, certainly. And
Okay.
again, if you want me to go with you to town council, I'd be happy to do that too.
Thank you.
I've done that in the past for the more complicated ones, and that sometimes.
One thing we haven't done here, and I forgot completely about, but that we might want to, is because the town doesn't have a policy like Weston, the town of Weston, who we used as an example to have a policy around associate members, we included a footnote in our ad hoc charter to indicate how to talk about the open meeting law, to talk about how the associate members need to be appointed or go through that process. Is there any benefit including any of that language in here, Tim?
I wouldn't put
So-
it here, but I would draft a policy.
Okay, so how would that policy get implemented? Like, because what my concern is, and to address the board's concern, was that, we specifically said that these committee members have to be accountable to ensure that open meeting law is not broken as they are dealing with these
Yes.
associate members. So how would we go about implementing a policy?
But what you would do is you would promulgate a policy for the Trails Committee that reads something like, I'm sorry, I can't always do these, right off the top of my head, but I think it would read something like the voting members of the Trails Committee are responsible for ensuring compliance with the open meeting law. And this includes ensuring that associate members don't inadvertently create serial deliberations or other
Yeah,
complications. We can draft something that works, but roughly like that. I don't think it needs to be approved by anybody else or go anywhere else.
so it's just a committee
It's just-
policy. And where do committee policies go to live? Do they just reside on our website? Is there a
This-
committee
the-
policy bucket in the?
Well, the secretary of a committee is responsible for maintaining the documents of the committee. And some formal things get submitted to the town clerk for filing and notice.
This seems like one of those important things. If it were, I guess it depends on what the clerk feels is important.
Yeah, well, I think the first thing to do is to figure is to write something up and make sure that
Yeah.
you know, it covers the cases. And then I think I would run it by the town clerk since he had the objections.
Okay.
And then
so
let's see
but
where it
second
goes.
order, I mean, should that happen at the same time? Or can we as a committee now as an ad hoc can create that and make that happen?
You
That
can
might-
make that happen and you should make it happen because you have
should, yeah.
associate members through the charge from the Board of Selectmen.
Okay, so I was proposing that last meeting that because we drafted a policy, but for the board to consider, but the board decided that it was best just to focus on the charge itself. So actually, that's a great way of doing this doing the same thing, but just it's our own policy.
Yes, it's your policy and you're looking after yourselves.
Great, I love
Right,
it.
because
Okay.
you know, you don't want to be called in front of the Attorney General's office for a violation and you recognize this is an issue, so
Right, yeah,
you write it
Okay.
down.
great. I love that. So that's very helpful.
Kat, I'm sorry to interrupt, but unfortunately, I have another family obligation I have to go tend to here
Of
right now.
course.
So,
Okay,
so I'm sorry about, unfortunately, I have to drop off the call here.
no, I thank you for
And,
joining us.
and I guess I want to, if I've unnecessarily complicated the earlier discussion here, I apologize for that. So I hope I didn't slow you guys all down.
No, I thought it was a great conversation.
Yeah.
Thank you for your additions. They were helpful. Helped us
Okay,
think through it.
so I hope you guys all have a nice Thanksgiving and I'll hopefully talk to you on Monday night.
Yes, thank you.
You too.
Tim.
Thank you.
Okay, great. So let's take a vote then to approve the bylaw as written this evening that we've presented on the screen, and have the next step be to propose it to the Board of Selectmen to
You
include on
want to
the
submit
warrant.
it to the Board of Selectmen for inclusion in the warrant for the annual town meeting.
Yes, we want to submit it to the Board of Selectmen, to the Select Board, to be included on the warrant for the town meeting in the spring,
For the annual town meeting.
annual town meeting. Okay, so do we have?
So be
any-
it.
So be it. Okay, Tom. Tom moved, and do we have a second?
I have,
Sati, great. Let's do a roll call vote. So all those in favor say yes when I call your name. Tom,
Yes,
Satyendra Sharma,
yes.
and Kat McKee. Great. Motion passes.
Okay, I'll send you a clean copy. It'll have a slightly different version number because I've got to delete the comments and stuff, but the content will be what you see on the screen.
Great. So I will then, I think the meeting's on the 7th. So I'll go ahead and submit it to the select board to be put on the next agenda or whatever agenda they feel like they can put it on, given their time constraints.
Right.
Thank you, Tim. We really appreciate your help.
Well,
Thank you.
happy to help. And I don't mind, you know, the discussion.
Thank you.
I'm trying
Can I
to do.
keep you for one more minute as we move to the discussion of budget? Because
Sure.
it impacts our bylaw. So I talked to Tim Davis about, so Recreation is prepared to move forward with proposing a line item for Southborough Trails under Recreation. So I proposed, based on our last conversation, the budget, and added a little bit more for tools and put that forward to Tim. So he's working his angle with Mr. Purple and Brian Valentine.
Brian Ballantyne.
Thank you. And so I asked him, how would it work if our bylaw got passed? And he was also proposing to have a line item under Recreation. And I think so I think, as I understood it, and I'm going to be a little foggy because our conversation was a couple of weeks ago, I think they would run in parallel, but if the bylaw passes, then his request would change.
No, what I think we would do is we would submit whatever you guys come up with, as the budget for the proposed Trails Committee. And administratively, if for some reason the Trails, bylaw were defeated, then you would continue as an ad hoc committee and you would have the budget.
Hmm.
Yes, and whether, right, so we would have a budget either way, but it depends, like if our bylaw is defeated, then our budget line item would be under trails. But if our budget is passed, it could be possible that our budget is under DPW. So there was discussion.
Why would it be under DPW?
Hmm.
Yeah, that's what Tim was saying, like they may move whatever department it is under. It doesn't mean that we're not still working closely with recreation. It just means the way the budget is.
Well, why DPW?
I know. So Tim said if this article passes, we will be under a DPW line item.
They're
No.
yes, they're discussing whether they should put us under a different department for budgetary reasons, because the approval of, and I'm gonna get this partially wrong, because recreation has very strict requirements on what they're allowed to spend their revolving fund on. And by putting us under DPW, there's more of a general fund, then we would have less restrictions and it would be, I think, a clearer.
Oh, wait, so you're saying the ad hoc standing committee would be going under DPW?
Yeah.
Okay,
But-
okay,
Just the line item for the budget.
right,
would go in there.
which is fine. I don't,
Yeah, we don't mind where we go as
Yeah.
long as we have a line item somewhere. And that doesn't mean we wouldn't still work with Tim and recreation closely, because people recreate on trails.
Yeah, well, I mean,
But I
advisory would
think-
not go for two submissions for one budget. It's got to be one place or another.
It's not two submissions. What do you mean?
Well, I mean, you're saying that depending on the outcome of the bylaw, the budget is in one place or another, and therefore it has to be submitted
no, no,
under
no, no, no.
recreation and as your own line item. And I think you want your own line item either way.
We'll get
Tim, I
it
think-
either way. It's just whether it's under Rick.
It's
Yeah,
it's
just,
trails.
it depends
It's a
on
top
what.
level line item, just like the Recreation Commission and the library and schools and everybody else.
I
I
still-
think-
And the Technology
Exactly.
Committee and the ADA, the Accessibility Committee and the Senior Center. And I mean, they all have a budget and it's all a top line item that's
It
visible
is a
at town meeting.
Standalone body, you mean?
All right, so I'm gonna
I'm not-
reserve the right to pause the conversation, get my notes wherever they are, and then revisit next week so that I'm really clear and so the record is set straight. I apologize for adding confusion, but it was confusing when I spoke about it, but I took detailed notes. They're not on my fingertips.
Yeah, well, I mean, I understand a little bit of what Tim may be suggesting, which is that, the Recreation Commission has discretion over its revolving fund. But I don't see that there's any difference to them if they apply that money to DPW for trail clearing or to the Trails Committee for trail maintenance. I mean, it's the purpose that matters, not the entity that's doing it.
Yeah, but what he said
But I'm an
makes,
engineer. I think about
Yeah.
things logically, not.
no,
So Kat, when you discuss that again, the two different scenarios, an ad hoc, where does the budget go? And where was it a full
Standing.
committee, where does the budget go?
yep, and we did talk about it, so I'll just figure it out and
Okay.
I'll talk about it next week so that we're clear. So whatever's on the record and whoever's listening, I will clarify the record next week. So no need to get upset if you hear something that's disturbing.
So it's really a decision for Brian Valentine and the finance team.
Yeah, and
terms
that's
of how
what
it's
Tim was
accounted
working
for.
with. Yeah, and Tim was working with them. And so anyway, the bottom line is we should, and it has to be voted on by the town. So depending on how things go. So we'll see. That is moving forward. And yeah, so that's all we had. So thank you, Tim. I appreciate your help. And I will be probably reaching out with just a few more questions about some stuff for clarity, but thank you.
Well, that's fine. So the only other thing that we haven't talked about in terms of the bylaw is, the Plan B, and you want to put that at the next meeting?
The citizens petition,
Citizens
yeah.
petition thing.
That was kind of, oh, yes, let's talk about it next time.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks. I think we're going to lose Sati in 5 minutes. So just a quick recap on the next steps with, so I guess as a follow-up to this, we're going to have to reach out to every board, commission, and committee that we want to have approval of. And there is no rush to get, is there a rush to do that in December, or can that flow into early year?
Oh, that can flow on.
Okay, so maybe we don't make that a December issue and we focus on that in Q1 before the town meeting, so that we can kind of focus our heads on the grant and such. And
Yep.
there's a lot to do with that. Okay.
Agreed.
So, okay, so the next thing is just the DCR update on Peninsula Trail. I think the next steps will be that I reach out to DCR to confirm if they need a special trails approval form, if they have a process like that. Check in on where the access plan is, and get moving on that. And then to Tom's point, Tom had asked for, what was that regarding roles and responsibilities?
Yeah, I know you've been busy, Kat, and if you could dig up that map. So what we discussed last meeting is, let's each member, and now that we have associate members, take a part of the trails, and they are responsible for monitoring them, simple maintaining, and then coming back to the committee saying, I need a work crew or something, that there's a lot of things going on. So we actually see our designated area, and we can float that and change the different trails. I think it's probably a good idea in every year or every 6 months. So we're not always stuck on the same trail. We get to maintain and be very close to different parts of the towns and the trains and the trail system. And I think that'll help in the overall maintenance of them. If we actually can then, for example, I'm right here in East Main. I take care of that Peninsula Trail, whatever we call it. Then Isabel takes care of the one by her house and stuff like that.
Ward
Brenda
Road.
does the Ward Road.
Yeah,
So
Ward
they're
Road.
very familiar with it and report back to the committee. Just a 5-minute report on their trail section. And then part of that reporting is trail's good, grass needs to be cut. There's a lot of litter. I could use a working committee to come out there, volunteers to come out there, or the trail is overgrown and we need a bigger committee, a volunteer committee to come out and fix it.
Yeah, great. Good, thank you. Yeah, and so then that will lead into the roles and responsibilities, so everyone will feel like they're beginning to have some accountability, and they can bring to the meeting some helpful tips and ways that they're contributing, and feel good about what's going on. So thank you, Tom. Okay, so schedule next meeting. Our next meeting is already scheduled for Monday, the 29th at 6:30. Sati, you'll be there.
Yep.
Right, and Tom, can you be there? So we at least have quorum and know we'll move forward. Okay, great. So I'll bring forth what we decided to talk about and then, and we will approve our meeting minutes from the 9th and from today. And yeah, great. Well, thank you, everyone. And I just want to acknowledge for the minutes, Satyendra, that Debbie Muria, DEMURIA, is joined us as an attendee.
Okay.
And Sam Stivers.
And Sam Stivers.
Yeah, anyway, I mean, I look at the video, so post meeting, so that's
Great. Thank you very much. And all right, well, I will call the adjourn the meeting at 7:59. And well, actually, we need someone to motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to close
I
today
second it.
Trails meeting of November 23rd to close.
Thank you.
Okay, I second it.
Great. And roll call. I say your
Jump
name,
the gun.
Tom McCoolier
Aye.
and Satyendra Sharma
Yes.
and Kat McKee. Yes. Great. Thank you, everyone. And
Thank you
And
so much.
I'm sending version 0.14, which is what you voted to Kat, and she can send it to the rest of you.
thank you.
Okay.
Great. Have a happy Thanksgiving, everyone. And we'll see you.
Same
on
to you.
Happy
Happy
Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving, everyone.
Okay.
Monday.
All right.
Bye.